Nigeria's history can't be discussed without talking about the Nigeria-Biafra War. The war, which took place from 1967 to 1970, was widely felt on the part of Biafrans, and it was estimated that 3,000 to 5,000 people died daily in Biafra from starvation as a result of the naval blockade. The war started 7 years after Nigeria got its independence. Nigeria gained its independence from British colonial rule on October 1st, 1960. After the independence, it was marked by ethnic competitiveness, educational inequality, and economic imbalance. In an attempt to scrap off ethnic conflicts, Nigeria's Midwest region was created in 1963 by dividing the Western region. Despite this division, the country still was segmented into 3 large geographic regions, each of which was essentially controlled by an ethnic group: the West by the Yoruba people, the East by the Igbo people, and the North by the Hausa-Fulani people. Nnamdi Azikiwe became the Governor General and President after the country became a republic in 1963. Abubakar Tafawa Balewa was named Prime Minister, and Obafemi Awolowo had to settle for the leader of the opposition. The regional premiers were Ahmadu Bello for the northern region, Samuel Akintola for the western region, Michael Okpara for the eastern region, and Dennis Osadebe for the midwestern region. Conflicts were endemic as regional leaders protected their privileges. The South complained of northern domination, and the North feared the southern elite was bent on capturing power. In the West, the government had fallen apart in 1962, and a boycott of the federal election of December 1964 brought Nigeria to the brink of breakdown. The 1965 election violated democracy as the right of people to vote was denied. The crisis in the election was what paved way for the military coup in Nigeria. A coup d'etat began in Nigeria on January 15, 1966, when mutinous soldiers led by Chukwuma Kaduna Nziogo and Emmanuel Ifejonu killed 22 people, including the first Nigerian Prime Minister, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, senior politicians, senior army officers and their wives, and sentries on protective duty. After the coup, a military administration was set up under Major General Johnson Aguiyi Ironsi with a plan to abolish the regions and impose a unitary government. On May 29, 1966, exactly 2 days after General Aguiyi Ironsi abolished the federating units of Nigeria and issued a unitary decree, this was perceived as a plot by the Igbo to dominate the North. The unity decree by Aguiyi Ironsi was the perfect excuse for the northern local government to hatch their massacre against the Easterners. This led to the killing of thousands of Igbos in the North. On 29 July 1966, another brutal pogrom started when northern officers carried out a coup and killed 240 eastern officers, of which the Igbo were about 90%. Among the officers killed was Aguiyi Ironsi, the supreme commander. They also massacred thousands of Igbo people in the north. This led to the mass exodus of Easterners from the north. The majority of them were hunted down and killed in cold blood. The dead bodies arriving in Igbo land caused the people of the East to retaliate and kill Northerners too, and this made the Northerners flee back to the North. Another wave of massive killings started on 29th of September 1966. It was recorded that over 30,000 Easterners were killed, the majority of which were Igbos. This was the point where the Igbos understood that Nigeria didn't want them anymore, so they returned to the East with dead families, broken spirits, and lost resources to start life afresh. After a series of ethnic massacres in 1966, Gowon's attempt to hold a conference to settle the constitutional future of Nigeria was abandoned. In the bid to save the country, Ojukwu, Gowon, and delegates from both the federal government of Nigeria and the eastern region met in Aburi, Ghana on January 4th and 5th, 1967. Aburi in the eastern region of Ghana was chosen as the venue because the eastern delegates led by the governor of the eastern state, Colonel Ojukwu, safety could not be guaranteed anywhere within the western or northern part of the country. They agreed on what is Aburi Accord. One of the significant outcomes of the Aburi Accord was that the leaders agreed that force would not be used to settle their brothers' palaver. Also, Ojukwu proposed that the situation in the country needed a drawing apart of the regions to avoid friction and further killings. The other leaders who wanted one Nigeria agreed to the proposal of drawing apart without understanding what it meant. Also, they agreed with Ojukwu that there wouldn't be a supreme commander of the army. Rather, each region would be responsible for its affairs, and the federal military government would be responsible for matters that affected the entire country. The officers toasted to their reconciliation and their agreement with the champagne. The federal government and eastern leaders were unable to reach a consensus on the implementation of the Aburi Accord. Both sides accused each other of reneging on the agreed terms. The failure to implement the Aburi Accord ultimately contributed to the escalation of tensions. On May 27, 1967, Yakubu Gowon announced the creation of 12 states, breaking the eastern region into 3: Southeastern State, River State, and East Central State, a move seen by Ojukwu as contrary to the letters of the Aburi Accord. 3 days later, on May 30, 1967, Ojukwu declared that the eastern region was breaking away from Nigeria as the Republic of Biafra. This was the last straw that drew the battle line. The Nigerian government launched a police action to retake the secessionist territory. The war began on July 6, 1967, when Nigerian federal troops advanced in 2 columns into Biafra. The division was made up of mostly northern officers. The right-hand Nigerian column advanced on the town of Nsukka, which fell on July 14, 1967, while the left-hand column made for Garikem, which was captured on July 12, 1967. However, the Biafrans responded with an offensive of their own when on August 9, 1967, the Biafran forces moved west into the mid-western Nigerian region across the Niger River, passing through Benin City until they were stopped at Ore, just over the state boundary on August 21, 1967, just 130 miles east of the Nigerian capital of Lagos. The Biafran attack was led by Lieutenant Colonel Banjo. Although Benin City was retaken by the Nigerians on September 20, 1967, the Biafrans succeeded in their primary objective by tying down as many Nigerian federal troops as they could. General Gowon also launched an offensive from Biafra south from the delta to the riverine area using the bulk of Lagos Garrison Command under Colonel Adekunle to form 3 divisions, which later changed to the 3rd Marine Commandos. Nigerians were repulsed 3 times and lost thousands of troops as they tried to cross the Niger during October. By 1968, a year after the start of the Nigerian Civil War, large numbers of children were reportedly starved to death due to a blockade imposed by the Nigerian Federal Military Government and the military. The blockade of the surrounding Biafrans led to a humanitarian disaster when it emerged that there was widespread civilian hunger and starvation in the besieged Igbo areas. The Biafran government claimed that Nigeria was using hunger and genocide to win the war and sought aid from the outside world. The final Nigerian offensive, named Operation Tailwind, was launched on January 7, 1970, with the 3rd Marine Commando Division attacking and supported by the 1st Infantry Division to the north, 1970, and the 2nd Infantry Division to the south. The Biafran town of Owerri fell on January 9, 1970, and Uli fell on January 11, 1970. The war finally ended with the final surrender of the Biafran forces in the last Biafran-held town of Amici on January 13, 1970. The aftermath of the war was characterized by massive loss of lives, money, and property. During the war, there were 100,000 military casualties and between 500,000 and 2 million civilian deaths from starvation. It has been estimated that up to 3 million people died due to the conflict, most from hunger and disease. Reconstruction helped by oil money was swift. However, the old ethnic and religious tensions remained a constant feature of Nigerian politics.